Hi, my name's Cecilia and I'm with techformoms.com, and today we're going to be doing another free tutorial on Photoshop Elements 12. Now last time we went over the tools on this left side panel. Now this time we're going to be going over the adjustments that are available, and once again we're working in the quick panel, so just take a quick gander up here, make sure you're in the quick panel with us. And if your adjustments aren't showing over here, take a look down here and make sure that they're selected instead of effects or textures or, heaven forbid, frames. So now that we're all in the same place, we'll get going. One button to get familiar with, this is the reset image button. So basically, if you did something, you're not a big fan of how it looks, you can reset it. Now keep in mind that's going to take you all the way back to where your image originally was. So it's not going to save any edits that you've done at all. Within each panel, so we'll take a look at the Smart Fix first. Within each panel, you'll find that there is a photo with that same icon on it. So that is where that picture lies on the spectrum within that panel. If you want to revert or take away any of these effects that you just applied, instead of going all the way back to the original, just click that button. And that'll do it for you. So the Smart Fix, what it's going to do, if you notice there's a button down here that says Auto, it's basically going to take the exposure, levels, color, balance, and sharpness of the picture, and it's going to look at your histogram and it's going to adjust all of that automatically according to what the program feels would be optimal for your photo. So if I click that button, it does its calculations, and as we see, it made the colors a little more vibrant, a little more saturated. It's a little more sharpened, the contrast is higher, and it's darker. Now, I'm not actually a big fan of what it's done in my picture, so we are going to go ahead and revert to the original. Now keep in mind that within each panel you will be able to adjust how heavy-handed these effects are. So if the system automatically takes you this far, up to this point, and you don't like it that much, all you have to do is adjust this slider right here. Left means less, right means more. So you can adjust the slider right there, or you can also adjust it via these photos. These little photo samples will tell you what it'll look like at that point on the spectrum. Notice that the slider moves in tandem with these pictures when you hover over it with a mouse. So there you have it. We are actually going to leave that alone because I don't want any Smart Fix influence in my photo. So we'll just take a look at the exposure first, or second, I guess. You can see one extreme on this end and one extreme on the other. In my photo, I like them just a titch brighter. I'm a big fan of bright photos, so I'm just going to adjust it a tiny bit so that it's a little bit brighter. If you want to revert, once again, you just click this button with the revert icon or the reset icon. Now, if you go down to levels, what levels adjust is your different lighting portions. So you've got highlights, you've got midtones, and you've got shadows. If right now we're in the highlights, so if I want my highlights a little bit darker, I move my cursor, my slider this way. And I don't happen to want my highlights any darker, so I'm going to leave that alone. And midtones, same thing. Darker's going to go this way, and lighter's going to go this way. It looks a little bit freaky if you go to extreme. The key in all of these adjustments is to keep them small. We're talking about tweaking your photo, not morphing your photo, which usually doesn't end well, and yeah, you just don't want to do that. So we're going to actually make my midtones a tiny bit lighter because I like bright pictures, like I said. And then for shadows, same deal. You can either make them darker or lighter. In this case, in my photo, there's not really any way to make them any lighter because it's already got pretty good lighting. So the only real option, or any darker, I mean. So the only real option is to make them a little bit lighter, which I don't really want to do. So we're going to leave it there. You do have the auto options right there, auto contrast and auto light levels. So next we go to the color, and this part, okay, so on your color spectrum you can go from black and white on one extreme all the way over to fluorescent colors on the other extreme, and that's what we call saturation. So this is very, very saturated. You got a really freaky looking look, like sunless tanning lotion gone wrong. versus black and white on the other. I like black and white. If you are a big fan, if you really dig the Samsung look, you might just want to tweak up your saturation a tiny bit, like so. Unfortunately, I am not a fan of the Samsung look. I do love Samsung, don't get me wrong, I just don't like things oversaturated. So I can take it down a little bit just to tone down the colors. I like things a little more muted. And then the hue is actually going to change the color in your photo. So if you want the Smurf look, it's definitely a possibility for you. Or you can go Oompa Loompa, or, you know, really anything that you want. Honestly, this is not something that you'll probably want to use on your entire photo. If some clown is wearing the wrong color shirt in a family photo, you can switch the shirt color, but you don't want to use it on the whole thing. Or if you're working with vectors, once you get to the expert panel, if you're working with vectors, it's easy to change the color of those vectors if they're not in the right hue. Vibrance is like saturation, just a little more subtle. If you notice, it's taken a lot of the, it's not quite black and white on the far end of the spectrum, and it's not quite neon on this end of the spectrum. Excuse me. So it's just a little bit more subtle. And obviously you always have the auto option. Then as far as balance goes, this is something that is very helpful if you haven't quite got a handle on your white balance settings on your camera. Just kidding. It's always obviously going to be a best case scenario when you take the picture with the correct white balance and exposure and shutter speed and ISO. All of that is optimal. However, sometimes you're trying to take a picture really fast before the moment goes away, like before she falls off this fence she's standing on. So if you don't have time to make those adjustments beforehand, you don't lose hope. The way to know that your white balance needs adjusted is if you come out with a color cast on your photos. So the most common is that it comes out kind of yellowish, orangish. That's usually in low light situations. You didn't have the right white balance. Usually it's indoors. Sometimes you can also come out with a blue color cast. Sometimes it's more subtle than others, but basically that's where the temperature comes into play. You can get warmer and you can get colder. Get it? Red is warmer, blue is colder. But anyway, that's going to help you take care of that color cast when you don't have the right white balance on when you took this shot. And I don't want that, so I'm going to reset it back to 50. Tint, same idea, just gives it a little bit more, like sometimes even when you've adjusted your white balance, it still has a little bit of a greenish tint or what have you, so you can adjust that here. And then the sharpen feature is going to bring your photos a little bit more into focus. Keyword is little. You don't want to get carried away. On this photo, you can't really tell because it's kind of a softer shot, but if you go to one extreme, usually it'll end up looking kind of freaky. You'll know you're getting a little bit out of hand or you've crossed the line when your pictures become pixely. So this will help prevent that, just keeping it really subtle. I'm going to sharpen it up just a tiny bit. You can see the little fine hairs on her arm a little bit, the little hairs flying in the wind a little better. That's how you can tell it's been sharpened. And obviously there's the auto feature. So there you have it. That is how you use the adjustments in the quick panel. Obviously, as you move on to the guided and expert panels, then there will be more and more options available to you, but they all basically stem from the same things. So this is a really good step up learning how to use your Photoshop program. And since you stuck with me so long, I'm going to give you a little bit extra. So as I said, these adjustments are supposed to be used in conjunction with these tools over on the left-hand panel. The best way to do that, for example, I'm going to use the selection tool because I want my skies a little bit darker or more vibrant, maybe a little more saturated, but I don't want my subject to be more saturated. So I'm just going to select the sky, and then I'm going to go to color, and we're going to go to vibrance, and we're going to say vibrant. See? You still have a subtle, realistic-looking sky that's a little more vibrant than it once was, and you don't have Smurf skin to go with it. So that's what you can do with your Photoshop elements. If you would like to see more Photoshop elements tutorials, you can visit us at www.techformoms.com, where you will also find free product reviews on technology, software, and apps. Thank you.